It's 10 player experience game changers for successful golf operations. My name is Boris Sieber. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tagmarshal. I have a very special guest with us, so I'm going to introduce in just a minute. Just a quick outline of who Tagmarshal is. We are a golf course intelligence system. We have by now tracked 7 million rounds of golf. We have 900 million data points collected. So by end of the season, we'll be cracking the billion. We're working with around 200 clubs in 9 countries. We are official partner of EasyLinks, which is a PGA Tour company. We're also research and technology partners to the USGA and the AJGA, among others. And some of those 7 million rounds come from a very, very prestigious course called Erin Hills. And I'm delighted to have a very good friend of Tagmarshal's with us tonight, or this afternoon rather. And his name is Jim Lombardo. Welcome, Jim. It's great to have you.
Happy to be here. Good to see you guys.
So Jim is very special to us and our team at Tagmarshal, because Erin Hills was the first customer of Tagmarshal's in the US, which is now, over 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So Jim certainly is an innovator and a pioneer, and very much an excellence engineer as far as his facility goes, and obviously has famously hosted a wonderful US Open last season. So we're delighted to have you, Jim. And I believe there's one very famous item that the wonderful Wisconsin has on offer that you're a big fan of, and that is the spotted cow beer. So I'm very grateful to have you here, and we'll make sure that we'll buy you one of those the next time we get together, which hopefully is at the PGA show end of January, if they have that famous ale down in Orlando. I'm sure we'll find out.
Oh, you can only get it. You can only get it in Wisconsin, but maybe I'll bring some down and we'll do it that way.
That would defeat the purpose of us buying your beer, but we'd love to try. Thank you, Jim. So we are working with a number of very prestigious and famous golf courses. Among them is Oakmont, Carnoustie, Erin Hills, as you would have seen now, Kiowa. We've got Pebble Beach, and I believe Sean Smith is also online. He's the Pebble Beach head pro, and Pebble Beach obviously hosting the US Open next season. I see you've just unveiled your US Open logo there. It looks amazing, Sean. Pinehurst, Whistling Straits, Valhalla, but very importantly, and just so we can profile ourselves, I suppose, we have a very broad application also in the private club space, and also in the lower tier daily fee space, where the majority of our courses in fact runs at below $50 green fee. So there's a really broad spread of information that we're gathering, and a really broad spread of courses that we're working with. About 29% are walking, 37% cart courses, and 30%. So we really have learned from all of them and adding value to all of them. Okay, so Jim, let's jump straight into it. Why the player experience factor is all important in golf. So this is obviously a key topic. And before we get to Erin Hills and how you make Erin Hills special and delight its guests, we took the opportunity to get the USGA to comment. So our friend Hanki Yoon, who is the Director of Partnerships, Outreach and Education and Research, Science, Innovation, and in which capacity we're working with him and his team. I believe, Jim, you also know Hanki quite well, right?
I sure do.
Was he one of the USGA guys who came to you last year and said, okay, you're welcome to be a guest at your own course now, we're taking over? Is that how it went down?
I wouldn't say that, but he was here, yes, and he's been here this spring working on some other initiatives and kind of tapping into our data and looking at how we run Tagmarshal to further develop what some of the things he's working on. So we know him very well.
Yeah, I believe he mentioned that they're doing new research as to what's important to golfers and the experience and so on. And he said that you would be aware of that.
Yeah, they're going to do some things out here this September yet, and we're looking forward to trying to help them out.
Brilliant. So what Hanki's mentioned, he made a few points in terms of why the experience factor is all important in golf. So he mentioned that There's a downward trend in participation that was measured by National Golf Foundation data from 2011 to 2017. There's a slight shrinkage in the golf population, and that's the US, so 25.7 million down to 23.8 million. He mentioned that there's a few positives and that golf has done a good job in attracting new golfers. So in that time frame, 14.6 million new golfers joined, but also, and that is obviously the challenge, 16.5 million people have left the game during that time span. So what's the key? And he's very certain that, and this is why it was so interesting for him to add his 5 cents to our session. We need to do a better job of retaining customers, especially newcomers. And how do we do that? We focus on the experience of our customers. So the USGA found the overall satisfaction with a round of golf was at 69%. That sounds reasonable until Hanky said, that this is about the same satisfaction level as people have with airlines and the post office. So I don't know how excited you are as to dealing with the post office. But 69%, that also means there's lots of room for improvement. One of the things that he mentioned that's really key, and which is why the USGA put such a big emphasis on the experiences, there is a huge relationship between participation and satisfaction. So if the satisfaction and the experience levels are high, then participation improves. And there's also a key risk area in golf, and that is the casual golfer. That's the guys, the ladies and gents, the youth who play 7 rounds a year or less. And for them, the number of the satisfaction level is 57%, which is obviously quite a bit lower than the average. And also the public golfers who pay $25 or less for their green fee, the satisfaction level is only 50%. So this is your entry level, lower tier down the road courses. So there's lots of work to be done, lots of opportunity. So we looked at, while the USGA is doing more research as to what is it that is key in terms of experience to the golfers, we looked at how do other industries shine a light on that customer journey. And we looked at McKinsey, for instance, and obviously they're taking lots of cues from the restaurant and entertainment space. And there's a few things that they highlight. Define clear customer experience, aspirations, and common purpose, develop a deep understanding of what matters to the customer, use behavioral psychology, innovate journeys through digital and design thinking, use customer journeys to empower frontline, and define metrics and governance systems to continuously improve. So to really make sense of this, obviously we need 5 McKinsey analysts that are on average 23 years old and have an MBA. To be with you for about 6 weeks, but we've saved you that time and effort and distilled this down to what's important to golf operators. And hope that you would agree, Jim. But basically, what they're saying, and basically what we're saying, and basically what is important is that we need to understand what really matters to the guests and members, and we need to define the experience that we stand for. So obviously at McDonald's, we've got a different experience than at a $100 steak restaurant, and we stand for something different, and something different is important for our guests and members, but we need to understand what it is, and we need to firmly define what it is that we want to deliver. How do we do it? We innovate with technology and we utilize modern opportunities. We need to empower the setup, the teams, the staff to be aligned with that customer experience that we defined. And then lastly, we need to set up metrics and find ways to measure and continuously improve so we can work towards excellence and really make that experience that we want to stand for true in everything that we do and work towards it every single day. Is this something that you would sign off in terms of how you work at Erin Hills, Jim?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially with the staff being aligned, we try to hire people who believe what we believe. And, our belief is, experience driven. And the most important thing here is the experience, all the touch points, from start to finish that we focus on. And we try and hire people that believe what we believe, which is, we believe that, people can come and travel and play a US Open golf course and have an enjoyable getaway and be blown away when they leave. And that's, if people are aligned with us, then they'll do the job. And, we train them say the right things and handle those situations properly. And that's how we align our staff, and it translates into a good customer experience.
Brilliant. And we're certainly going to dig a bit deeper into how exactly you do this, and we're very excited to learn a bit more. So from our side, what we thought we want to highlight first is understanding how the customer thinks, and understanding what really matters to them, and defining the experience that we stand for, that an operator stands for around that, because the customer has the power, and we certainly understand that when we are the customer, when we're going for dinner somewhere, or when we looking to buy a vehicle, or when we looking to go on holiday, we are the customer, and we're very unforgiving of poor service levels or inconsistency. And it's no different if we are the service providers and the customers coming to us. So with regards to the golfer experience and the golfer's buying decision, or in terms of where do I want to play or where do I want to become a member, there are three key metrics. Here's the experience that I want out of this. And obviously in golf, that comes with conditioning, layout, playability, staff service levels, clubhouse, food, beverage, the flow, the pace. Then there's the time. When can I do this, and how much time does it take, and what do I need to make myself available? And lastly, there's a cost and the value question. So it would be great for us to understand what you believe matters most to the people that go and join you at Erin Hills and want to have the Erin Hills experience. Like, out of those points, what would you see as key?
Well, as far as that goes, we focus on the overall experience. Obviously, people come here with very high expectations. They're ready to get blown away, and so we have to match those expectations. And part of our success is, the first thing is the course has to be well conditioned. They're expecting it to be like it was, showed on TV during the U.S. Open, perfect conditions. So that's what they're expecting. So that's what we have to provide, and we've done a good job with that. The other two things I think that can maybe ruin somebody's day is if either waiting around on the golf course all day long. Flow and pace, very important that we focus on that, and obviously Tagmarshal helps us with that. And the other part of it is, it goes along with the service and the staff levels. Obviously, we focus on hospitality and customer service, but the food and beverage operation has to be impeccable as well. And because if you're on the golf course and you're waiting around all day and you can't get a drink or a water, those are the things that can really frustrate people and lead to a poor experience. So we always make sure we focus on all of that. And as far as the service and staff levels, we have a caddy program here, so we don't have carts, and the caddies end up spending the majority of the time with the guests.
The slide here,
upwards to 5 to 6 hours worth. And so we make sure that our caddy program is top notch as far as is their customer service and their hospitality, and it is. And all those things come together for a really, really nice experience.
So you've already dug into one of the questions that we would love to ask you. What are the key experience factors that Erin Hills stands for? So, if I'm not mistaken, Jim, you were pretty much there from day one. So when the course was designed and conceptualized and built, and obviously it was very much designed with the view in mind that it was supposed to attract a major at some point in the future. So if I'm not mistaken, we're talking now 17 or 16 years ago. So
actually, I've been here 13 years. So we opened in 2006.
So as far as the vision was concerned, obviously there was a lot of work that went into it, and you've got a well-oiled and wonderful facility now. But in terms of the vision, what was that key experience that Erin Hills stands for? And maybe just to give you some pointers, obviously the USGA survey on experience factors for the golfers had the following responses. So course conditioning, 82% of golfers said was key. People that they play with, 76% of golfers were key. So here the question is, do most people come in pairs? Do they come in fours? Do they come in large groups? Are the caddies counted towards the people that you play with, maybe in this setup? Then accessibility, tee time availability. This is obviously more the regular golf, but certainly I would want an opportunity at least once to have Erin ticked off my bucket list. Then the pace and flow of play. You mentioned that already. 74% of players say that's critical. And lastly, cost and value. And value obviously is what you guys are really good at, because people are very happy to pay a higher price for getting an amazing experience. So in terms of the vision that you have now for Erin and that you had from day one, what are those key factors that you would say, and how does it match up with what the golfers want according to the USGA?
Well, the course was designed to try and put together, the best layout and the best 18 holes that they could. And when they were when they designed it, pointing towards a potential U.S. Open. So trying to design a golf course that's going to host a major was their number one goal. And that is kind of our number one goal here as far as ownership goes, is the ability to host championships. So with that being kind of our key mission, and obviously to have other people play it, the overall experience is we're willing to sacrifice a little bit of revenue to have the overall experience be really good for our people, because we're trying to retain customers. All of the things we have done, even with the U.S. Open, trying to get another one. That was our goal when we had one, was trying to get another one. So just trying to put this all together, all 5 of those things that you see listed, in the effort to try and retain customers and return visitors.
And that's certainly something that you've done really well, and is especially in and around the US Open. Obviously, there's major hype, and you can certainly tell us a bit more, a bit further down our session. Or there's one thing that we wanted to check in, and that's the question of what walking in your customer's shoes can teach you. And if is because we said we want to empower the setup, and obviously the setup also comes with playability and with making sure that people find their way around. There's the teams and the staff that need to be there to match, but the setup is one side of the story. So we wanted to look at how to do that well. And so we've asked, another good friend of ours is Duncan Cruikshank, who's a golf industry consultant. And you must excuse the funny picture here. He didn't choose it, I did, but he does have a wicked sense of humor, so you might appreciate it. So the question here was that a genius and intended, or was it a fail? So what we want to shine a light on is, how do we walk in our customers' shoes? And one of the very easy ways of doing that is to join and observe a first-time customer, or do a user test. Because Jim, you mentioned you've been at Erin Hills 13 years, you know it like the back of your hand. But what about the person who's never been there? So there's a lot of things that are to be considered, and I would fully expect that Erin has got this down pat, but other courses may want to take a look, because there's always room for improvement. So one of the things is obviously booking, and a lot of this happens on a website. So the question is here, does it answer all the visitors' questions? Is it up to date with current club news, for instance, and not 2016's? Arrival, is the welcome at the gate what you would expect? That's the first point of contact. Is it obvious where you need to go from the car parks? It's a question of signage. It's a question of flow and logic. Who's the first staff contact for the visitor? Are they polite? Are they friendly? Are they informative? Are they aware that they're the first staff contact, and that they're setting the standard? Getting from A to B, is it obvious how to go from registration, paying points to the first or to the 10th, to the practice areas? Is it easy to get around, or do you get lost? Do you have to ask your way all the time? What's the setup like? And this is something that is very, very difficult to do once you know a place well. And it's very hard to imagine what it would be like for somebody who's never been here, but it's possible to do it. There's also a big question, because players spending 4 hours, 5 hours at Erin out on the course, directional signage on the course, is it logical? Is it obvious? Getting from the green to the next tee. There's a question of sign versus ropes. There's also a question of, are we catering to the 8% of the male population that's colorblind and can't see a red signpost behind a green backdrop? There's simple things. So Jim, from your side, How do you make sure that that Erin does all of this really well in terms of first point of contact, in terms of signage and directional course logic and the flow on the course? What is the key here for Erin?
Well, we take the entire experience and we analyze it from the time people pick up the phone and make a call for reservations. Well, we analyze that experience. How's that? Is it easy for them to make a reservation? How long does it take? Are they being conveyed with the proper information prior to arrival? And then, we do have a welcome house when they arrive. How's that experience? Are those people delivering the message properly? So, I mean, from the time they call to the time they come in, to the time they park go to the bag drop, and to the time they park, to how is the flow to walk in, to check in, to register? How is the flow to get to the range, to meet your caddy, to get to the first tee on time, to tee off, to playing a nice, comfortable round without waiting, and the finish? We define and try and figure out every touch point, every contact where there's an experience, and we try and make that as good as we can. So, I mean, we break it down into some high level detail is what we do.
Well, that sounds absolutely brilliant. And I did mention you're a success engineer, and obviously saw your team, and I wouldn't expect any less. So one of the other questions is, does signage say what not to do, or is it positive and welcoming? So here's two examples. So they both say the same thing, but the one is making me feel like I'm doing the wrong thing and I'm standing at the wrong place, and the other is making me feel like I'm really welcome here. And I actually saw the second sign at Amsterdam airport just 2 days ago. And I felt so great to be a customer of this business. I felt loved for a second, and this might be taken at a half a millimeter too far, but there is a big difference in having a negative outlook on signage and trying to regulate rather than guiding people. The other question is, obviously we're talking about Erin Hills here, which is a standout resort, but what does it mean for a private club and in the member space? Is the questions here, is the member greeted by name because you're a regular? Is everything neat and tidy at all times? Are clubhouse notice boards up to date? What would you complain about if you walked in the shoes of a member? Because often you would know that there are things that can be done better. Can you prioritize and get them done better? Can you fix them? What would you be complimentary about? What are the things that stand out? What are the things that make you who you are? What are the things that give you a competitive advantage as a private club? And then the last question is, are existing members getting the same attention as new or prospective members? And Jim, I know that you've got many friends and peers that run private facilities. What do you think is important to them that we may not have picked up here in terms of things that they should be aware of when dealing with their members?
Well, I mean, obviously, knowing everybody and greeting them by name is important. But I think organization and probably consistency. I think, and I've worked at private clubs before too, but I think being consistent in how you greet and treat and talk to every member, man, woman, junior, whatever, I think is really important. I think that probably keeps your job a lot if you're able to treat the member who's there, a good friend of yours possibly that's there 5-6 days a week playing, as compared to maybe somebody who shows up once every month and that you don't know all that well. If you treat them all consistently the same with the same professionalism, I think that's huge.
That's a great tip. Jim, so we've now looked a little bit at setup. Now we want to look at teams and staff and how do we align them with the customer experience. And you've already alluded to it, but there's a few things that we want to really dig into a little bit. So I was visiting a course the other day, and there were visitors that came from overseas because it's quite a well-known place. And they asked the starter, do you have any playing tips? And they were curious. I mean, that's the first time that they're there and they've made the long trip, and it's a beautiful day out, and they really wanted to know. And the starter just looked up and said, hit the ball straight. And obviously that's great for a laugh, but I don't think that the guest was feeling all that appreciated at that second. So if you wouldn't mind, just in no particular order, you spoke about that you've got that firmly defined. what is it that that anyone at Erin Hills would know about the course if they ask that question? Do you have any playing tips? And how do you keep people aware in terms of setup adjustments, weather, and things like that? And to what extent do your staff are they capable and empowered to give a really great answer here? And maybe that leads into how to turn marshals, starters, and player assistants into service managers. And lastly, we want to look at the expectations of tomorrow's caddy. Are they just guys who carry your bag, or are they really course experts and adding massive value to the experience? So, what are your thoughts on any and all of these points, Jim?
Well, it starts with hiring. We try and take the Ritz-Carlton approach and hire people who smile all the time and who are, personable during an interview, because if somebody's really personable and chatty with you during an interview, they're probably going to do the same that with guests. And the people who we hire believe in what we believe with the experience. So, I mean, if somebody asking questions, or even some of the, way out in left field questions, we train our people to, answer in detail as best they can with a smile. And if we can't get the right answer, we'll find somebody that can. But and it comes down to language too. We train people to say the right things. For instance, scripts. We script out everything. We script out our welcome house arrivals greeting. We script out our phone greetings, our marshal interactions with guests. I mean, they'll say, you never want to go up to a group and say, you guys are slow, or you guys are holding things up. It's more like, here, I'm here to help. Your group's a little out of position, and I'm here to help you get back into position. It's such a more positive approach.
Absolutely.
To that. And so, we look at all of that as far as, what people are saying and saying the right things. And that really goes a long way. And that goes with the caddies too. I mean, we find guys that are entertaining, they know the course, they're trained to know what's going on, they know the history of the place. And oftentimes we'll see our guests return after being here a year or two and requesting, they remember the caddy's name that they had here a couple of years ago, and they request to see if he's here. So I think that says a lot about what we're doing and the things that are working for us. So,
and would you also try, obviously, if the caddy's still available and if the caddy's still with you, which I'm sure that you're retaining the good guys as much as you can, would you try and personalize that experience if possible? So if somebody says and asks, is caddy so-and-so still around, and I'd be delighted to have him back, you will obviously try and make that happen for them.
Oh, yeah, we do that all the time. That's why when people make reservations here, we don't just, and I know a lot of places do this too, we don't just wait for them to show up, no matter how long ago they made the reservation. We always get in touch with them 2-3 times with emails, phone calls, text reminders about their upcoming reservation, and make sure we hammer all the details out, including caddy requests, so we can get lined up for that. So it's been a wonderful approach on our part, and it's led to what I call is no surprises. When a guest shows up, if there are surprises, then usually those surprises are not good. The size of the bed was not what they wanted. They didn't realize there was, caddies double bagged. They thought they were getting all their individual caddy. They got lost coming here. Whatever the case is, anytime there's a surprise, usually not good. So we try to minimize all that with all of our communications, and it just leads to better hospitality and service.
Makes so much sense. Jim, maybe a minute on the starter and the role of the starter at Erin. And you mentioned scripts, and then also I remember you saying that the starter is important for almost vetting the players and making sure that your team is aware of who's going out there.
Oh yeah, our starters work with the caddies who observe players hitting on the range to try to get them on the proper set of tees, because that's not only huge to pace of play, but it's huge to their experience. To try and get people on the right set of tees is tremendously important. Consistency for the starter. We have 12-minute intervals here. The first hole is a difficult par 5, and to keep those intervals at 12 minutes exactly is we found, according with the Tagmarshal data told us, hugely important to the overall pace out there. So between that and the starter, just welcoming people and welcoming to the golf course and providing that friendly greeting, because people are, a lot of people that haven't been here before, they're excited to play, sometimes even nervous on the tee. And just to calm them down and welcome them and let them know that the course is theirs and to enjoy it is hugely important to us.
That's brilliant. And maybe let me just do a quick stop here. Malcolm, are there any questions? And then obviously also just an invite to anyone, if you have any questions for Jim or any questions that you would like to have fielded. Also, there's lots of good people in the crowd here that I'll be able to answer. Please shoot away.
Sean's got a question.
Okay, that is, I take it that's Sean Smith from Pebble Beach, correct?
That's correct, Joe.
Sean, just when you're ready. Okay, so I think maybe this is a good time, Jim, for us to look at the importance of data to a successful golf course operation. And maybe just to also link that back to what we said initially, we want to innovate with technology and use modern opportunities. At the same time, obviously, we're respectful of tradition in golf. And key and absolutely important in terms of data is that we wanted to find the metrics that matter, look for ways to measure them, and look for continuous improvement. So this is really what we want to dig into as far as Erin is concerned, and maybe we just want to quickly paint a picture of what we're talking about here when we're talking about the experience at the regular course, and there's obviously a time budget that comes with that. And some of you may have seen this before, but there's around about 20 minutes to arrive and check in, and then you're going to putt and drive a little bit, and then you've got probably around about 4 hours out on the course. After that, you shower and dress, and then you have burgers and beers, and you talk about your round, and you rag your friends that you shot a better score than they did. So this is around about the experience that we're expecting. Jim, you mentioned consistency. Obviously at Erin, that looks quite different. For one, we know that it's a resort. You spend much more time. You take your time as well. At the same time, you want a no surprises approach. So that green patch here, which is the on-course time at Erin, is longer because you've got a tremendously long and tough course. So maybe you want to fill us in a bit on how you define metrics and find ways to measure and what's important for you as to those various elements of obviously arrival and getting out playing and being out on the course for such a long period of time, and then what happens afterwards, and how do you define it, and how do you measure it, and how do you look for continuous improvement?
Well, we take data on everything. We take like on a tee, we try and determine if all of our guests are either going to Sand Valley or Kohler in this area. If they've been here before in the last 4 or 5 years, sometimes we're going to try and figure out what people's handicaps are and see if, we have a day where, we have a lot of high handicappers, what's the pace of play? I mean, so we're, all the ranger notes that we're logging in, all these spreadsheets to try to learn our business more. And I think the more you know your business and the more you use these tools, the more efficient you'll be in far as revenue captures. I mean, let's face it, we're still in a bottom line business. So, we can talk experience all day long. It's got to be good, but we obviously have to show a profit as well. So, I mean, the more you know your data, the more you can record things and analyze it and compare year to year, I think the smarter you'll be. And, we need to be smart operators.
Jim, so maybe with regards to the on-course experience, obviously this is a massive chunk of time and effectively the key reason why people come to Erin. Obviously, you've got amazing restaurants and an amazing atmosphere, and you've even got a spa, and it's a beautiful place to come to. But really why they're coming is they want to have that on-course experience at a major host. So, and we know, and one of the reasons why you're so happy to come and chat on this session is that you're using the Tagmarshal system. So maybe we can just skip ahead and look at what this looks like in terms of data for you and your team and how you use it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been brilliant for us. Our for our marshals to be able to grab an iPad or a tablet, log in, and the minute they get out on the golf course, to know exactly where they need to go, what they need to do, focus on, they can go immediately to where, the hot spots are with groups that might be out of position. Saves a lot of time. All of the notes they gather helps us analyze our data. But just the progress report, if you have a group that's maybe 2 or 3 or 4 minutes out of position, but they had one bad hole and they've had 5 good holes in a row, sometimes we leave those people alone. And we use the system for so many different things, and it's really taught us a lot about, like I was telling you before, with our morning play, typically, I've worked at a lot of places where you got to get the marshal out right away because the first group of the day can make or break sometimes your whole day. Well, our system has told us that, we haven't had to worry about the first couple hours of the day, that we have groups ahead of pace in the morning rounds, and therefore haven't had to bring the ranger until a little bit later and focus on the afternoon, where we have a lot of overnight guests that are staying overnight that typically don't play as fast as the morning crew. So we can, we focus our marshal staff on the afternoon. And by doing that, we've been able to add several tee times near at the end of the day, where in the past we didn't want to take a chance of adding those tee times because for fear that people wouldn't finish. But, now we've added at least one every day the last couple of years. And then now this year we've even gotten better. We've improved pace of play enough that we've, I've added, especially in the fall here when the days get shorter, 40 or 50 more extra tee times at the end of the day that we've been able to get around. That's generated $40,000-$50,000 worth of extra revenue that we weren't even planning on. So, it's more than paid for itself. But it has so many applications. All the staff knows where everybody is. Food and beverage knows where everybody is. We know where the VIP groups are. We've started doing some shuttling services on the golf course where we picked up a few minutes here and there, and we've analyzed what that's done to our overall pace. Seeing the caddies listed and tracking caddy results and showing them where, sometimes they're, if they're delayer, they need to, maybe pick it up a little bit and try and figure out why maybe it is that they're not getting people around. So it's helped our operation so much that I can't live without it.
Maybe that's important to point out. So at a lot of courses, this section here would show the player names, and in your instance, obviously you are tracking the caddies. Yeah. So you're building caddy profiles. In a private club, a club would then build player profiles around this, and then obviously very quickly figure out trends and who's a pace setter and who's middle of the range and who's maybe a bit of a risk, or should rather consider afternoon rounds. In terms of the data and the planning opportunities, and then also obviously tracking performance and defining those metrics, what is important? I mean, we spoke about the starter, we spoke about understanding your course hole by hole, and obviously there's day-to-day performance, there's weather, pace distribution. What are the things that you guys look at on a week-to-week basis that is key for you to understand, are we doing well, and what you must work on and so on?
Oh, well, I mean, obviously on a daily basis, I look to see, how many groups that we have that are delayers. That's the one that and how bad it is, and how bad it is. And how quickly, we respond to those. But, on a daily, basis, we look at what's important to us is the number of notes and how we responded to all of those, and the the number of delayers, the number of groups that have finished, on time or better. When we log all this data in, if we have 40 groups tee off on one day, the other day we had all 40 actually finished on pace or better, which was, amazing. I think it's one of our first that we've ever had that. Just overall, the time, the average round time, our target time are all things that we look at. I mean, we look at everything. Morning play. I mean, how was the morning pace compared to the middle of the day, compared to the end of the day? Did everybody finish? We have to make sure that all that happens. So the system tells us all that. And yeah, the starter accuracy, I mentioned that before. We look at that. Are we getting people off every 12 minutes? We look at that every day. And if they're was an issue with, a couple groups that they had to jump up because we had people running late. Well, we've talked to the starter about that, told them to maintain the 12-minute intervals.
So the questions from Sean, the first one is, has Mr. Lombardo ever had to remove a player from a course due to slow play? And secondly, have you had to remove a group or skip a hole?
The answer to the first one is no. We've never had to remove a player or a group due to slow play. We've had some groups that were egregiously behind, but they were at the end of the day and didn't impact anybody. Or on a day where, we had some weather issues where they didn't impact other people. And the other answer to the other question is, have we had to move groups? Yes. We've had to move on occasion. It happens a handful of times in the year where on a busy day, a group has fallen over a hole behind, and we will pick them up and place them where they belong, and then allow them to play the hole they missed when they're finished. So it has happened, yes.
Jim, one of the things that you mentioned is just a better understanding of your times of day and your days of the week, and when and how to position your people. So this is what that looks like in terms of looking at the distribution of the pace, and obviously there's a before and after trend here at the top and bottom, where we're looking for getting a sense of the status quo, and then we're looking for improvement. One of the things that we're very excited in learning more is the question of playability and ways that your course can turn on the charm. So at Erin Hills, obviously, the question here is to US Open or to not US Open in terms of the setup differences, and how do you balance that ambition of a player to want to play that tough US Open course they saw on TV versus what is actually possible for them in terms of their handicap, in terms of their experience levels, in terms of their fitness. How do you balance this? How do you track playability? What's important? And obviously also a sense of time, pace, flow, and playability. What are the things that you keep in mind? And lastly, the key question, how do you turn on the charm? How do you make it an incredible experience, and balancing all of those things?
Yeah, the US Open, people watch it on TV and they wanted to come play the Black Tees, which was, 7,800 yards, all the bucket listers that came last year. And, that had an effect on our pace of play. Some of those folks just couldn't handle it. So if they can't keep up with the pace at that set of tees, we required them to move up. So as far as tracking playability, like I said, we record, all of the tees that people play on a consistent basis, and try and track pace of play against like a consistent day of, a green tee or a white tee or a black tee day or a blue tee day that was heavy. And so, that's important to us. And we work with the starters on making sure that, obviously that we get people playing a more forward set of tees. As far as the playability of the golf course, obviously time and pace and flow is huge. It's gotten to the point where, in the past, when we first got started with this, or even before that, where, the worst day would be a group that was maybe 20, 25 minutes, sometimes even 30 minutes out of position. And we've really narrowed that down now, where our expectations are, a group that's overall maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes out of position or behind pace at the end of the day, that's a bad time. So our expectations have gotten better, and as that's happened, our pace of play has gotten better. So we just don't let anybody get way out of position right from the beginning, and that's how the course becomes way more playable, is getting off to that good start and then keeping them at that pace, and then they're used to it, and then everybody follows right behind. And can't say enough about how well that's worked. As far as turning on the charm, just got to hire the right people, get people who are personal, laughing, talking to guests, and experiencing their experience with them. Or we have people that are happy for the guests to be here. You're excited for them to have a good time out here. And if you've got those people on your staff, customer experience is going to be much better.
That's brilliant. Jim, maybe we'll, because mindful of time, just some practical takeaways to apply. Obviously, we've covered a lot of great ground here, but there were a few questions that we wanted to. Before we get to that, I think there were some more questions. Malcolm?
There were some more questions. I've got some questions from Duncan to Jim. Are all golfers aware that they are being monitored by Tagmarshal, and how do you communicate this? And the second question is, are pace setters rewarded in any way?
Pace setters, the answer to that is we haven't done anything with that. However, we have had groups who have fallen out of position on any given day that have caught back up based on our advice or our interactions, and we have rewarded those people with maybe a burger at the turn or a round of beers when they're done or while they're on the golf course, just to say thank you. And our players, they do know that they're being that the caddies will have a pace play device, and if we have a group that does not have a caddy in the group, that we will give those people a pace to play device so they know they have it. So our players do know that they're being tracked and monitored, and we just tell them, hey, we just want to know where you are and how you're doing out there as far as pace with the entire field, so they know.
Okay, and then I've got two more questions from Sean. The first one being, do you track your caddy's pace of play and provide them feedback?
Yep, it's part of their review. Their overall pace, their number of times there have been a delayer, and yes, it's part of their review.
Okay, and then the second question is, do you provide a guest a pace time expectation on the first tee?
We do. We tell them what our goal is. We always, we have posted a 5 hour, 2 minute round of golf, which is achievable. We've gotten it, to 7 or 8 minutes on average below that this year. And the reason it's so long is because of the walks between greens to tees and the design of the golf course. It's, there's about a 40 to 40 minutes of extra walking compared to like a parkland golf course on our golf course to get to the next tee overall. But we have, for the most part, done all of that. We try and tell them at least less than a little bit short of 5 hours. So we don't give them exact time is what I was trying to come up with.
So there is at least an awareness and a sense of
keep up
responsibility.
Keep up with the group in front of you, and you can expect the elapsed time to be a little less than 5 hours. I don't want to give them, 5:02 or 4:59. And let's say a little less than 5 hours. That's kind of that's fair enough. Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. Just to conclude, just maybe in terms of takeaways to apply at your operation. So the question of experience versus revenue opportunity, what role does it play? Experience and consistency, you mentioned that already. We know that if I go to Erin, I'm going to have an excellent day on a Tuesday or on a Saturday. I'm going to have an excellent time in the morning or in the afternoon. And obviously you manage performance around this. And lastly, that's probably the most important question, experience and the $37 round. So if you were, or maybe you have in the past run an average course with the appropriate staffing and budget, what would be the experience items that you would focus on? Because now obviously you can track and you can measure many metrics, and you've got an amazing staff contingent. But if you had to cut everything back to the basics, what would it be that you wouldn't do without? So take it away, Jim. And then also I would love to get Sean to field that question. Maybe you've given that some thought, but if you would, that'd be super kind.
Well, I mean, the things that, I would focus on, obviously, course conditions. You have to have a very playable golf course. And if you had budget constraints, I mean, obviously, we focus on as much as you can for course conditions, but conditions of the greens. I think I've always thought that people can overlook bare spots in the fairway or thin bunkers, but if the greens aren't really good, it leads to a lot of complaints. So you've got to get that going. I think that the overall flow and experience with the staff, I think is very, very important. The well-trained staff, to treat these people well, so you can get a lot of repeat visitors, which is what you should be trying to do. And obviously pace of play, and I think, along with that, maximizing your tee sheet, that's your main revenue driver. And if you're maximizing your pace of play and you're getting people around quickly and they enjoy it, because time is money, and you can get more golfers on the golf course, leading to more revenue. And if these folks aren't waiting around all day out there, I'm telling you, they're going to come back, because I think as busy as people are these days, time is money, and you get people around in a decent amount of time, and maximizing your tee sheet to the very end so you can get the maximum effect on revenue is huge.
Great points. And I think that also speaks to consistency, Jim, if I'm reading you correctly here, so that you would look to provide a consistent experience so that the players know what they're in for when they come to your course.
Absolutely, because when they come back, that's what they'll be expecting.
Now that we've looked at the $37 round and how we would optimize in that space of the market, this is probably a good time to circle back at Hunky Yoon and the USGA's challenge to really put a big effort on the player experience, especially in that segment of the market and the lower segment, because that is where the experience has been lagging behind expectation, and this is what has been hurting participation. So it makes a lot of sense from a golf as a sport and as a business point of view, and obviously also makes a big difference for the business of golf with regards to those individual operators and what they need to do to optimize. And we've seen that it's not impossible. We've seen with the right focus and with the right data, we can certainly make a big difference with regards to optimizing the experience.
Malcolm, did we get any more questions, or maybe an answer from Sean's side?
So Sean's response was course conditions and the value question. You have to exceed the value. You have to exceed the value the guest experience. The guest experiencing. We have an in-turn return rating of 97%. If I had $37 green fee intent to return, would be a huge focus.
Thank you, Sean. That's a great point here. The intent to return is a great metric to measure, because it really looks at have we ticked the right boxes with regards to expected experience of the guests and players. Really a good one to look at, and great way to measure, are we on the right track?
I've got a note here from Sean saying, thank you, this was fantastic. And he will get his mic fixed, which would be great. And he's made a note here, guest surveys. Sean, I'm not too sure if you want to elaborate on guest surveys, but I would imagine obviously doing guest surveys and understanding what the experience requirements are.
Collecting feedback is also part of the data set, surely. I think we're always obviously trying to also get informed as to what we should dig in deeper and have another session about. So thanks everyone who hit the buttons here on this poll results. I will certainly consider it for next round. And also Sean Smith, in fact, has made himself available for a webinar in the near future where we're going to dig into some of the more technical questions around the pace, the flow, gap time, and so on. So this is going to be very exciting. Again, thank you so much, Jim. Thanks everyone for checking in. And really appreciate it, and hope to catch up with you soon over a spotted cow.
Well, thank you. It was great to be with you guys. I hope I was able to help out. It was a lot of fun.
It definitely was. Thank you.